Independent journalists enjoy journalism, but don't want to be restricted to a single publication. They work without institutional newsroom support and also rely on tools from major tech companies like Google and YouTube for news gathering, production, and distribution. As a matter of course, as these information giants publicly wrestle with controversial content moderation decisions that dominate headlines and congressional hearings. Their decisions also run the risk of stifling routine reporting when a content is removed or an algorithm tweaked behind closed doors. News organizations and journalists are often left without any sort of transparency into the process of a clear path to appeals. The Freedom of the Press Foundation and the US Press Freedom Tracker experienced this firsthand with the temporary takedown from Google Docs of an online database they've used to track more than 2,500 tweets by former President Donald Trump attacking the media. Neither they nor their reporter, whose personal account owns the document, were notified of its removal, and no recourse was offered. But luckily, some of their colleagues, no employees at Google, and their allies know even more. After many people made private inquiries on their behalf, the document was restored without explanation a day after they discovered it was down. Obviously, that course of action isn't available to most, but they still have no idea why the Trump tweet database was taken down. Even a temporary suspension can have serious drawbacks for reporters or outlets that are providing timely reporting or live broadcasts. Since the beginning of 2021, for example, the progressive news outlet status quo has been both a widespread adoption of its live streaming footage and an increase by restrictions from YouTube, where it broadcasts. As it was covering a pro-gun rally in Virginia, its feed was abruptly cut for violating the service's firearms policy, even though their channel was restored. Status Quo has made the editorial decision not to go live as it covers certain controversial events. Critical footage it shot from the Capitol riots, which was later licensed by CNN and other networks and seen by millions of people, was taken down by YouTube, and much of it hasn't been restored. In the weeks since, some of the same raw footage was also removed from Google Drive. Again, citing unspecified terms of service violations, according to the outlet's co-founder Jordan Chariton. He described the difficulty of planning reporting trips or assignments when the resulting stories are shaded with total uncertainty. Google's domination of search means it can have profound effects on distribution, even for outlets that don't expressly rely on products like YouTube. US Right to Know, a non-profit newsroom that engages in investigative journalism on public health issues, has provided Freedom of the Press Foundation with evidence of a sudden and dramatic drop-off in incoming traffic from Google search results after the search engine released a core update to its ranking algorithm. Their Google referral traffic dropped off a cliff in the beginning of December 2020, right when the algorithm change was announced. They've also previously attracted strong negative attention from the subjects of its reporting. Monsanto set up an intelligence center to monitor and discredit the organization and other journalists. In the absence of meaningful transparency or an appeal process, it's difficult to rule out the idea that such a motivated company could possibly have played a role. This is only one example of many over the years, where an algorithm change has killed a news outlet's traffic overnight. Back in 2017, the New York Times wrote how legitimate left-leaning independent news outlets were getting decimated by Google's attempt to eliminate fake news. Outlets, large and small, have long complained Facebook constantly wreaks havoc on their traffic and in turn their revenue if they decide to de-emphasize certain subjects or news in users' news feeds. Newsrooms are stuck trying to read the tea leaves in vague announcements for how to respond. To be clear, companies like Google, Facebook, and Twitter have their own First Amendment right to make decisions about what content they host and how they present that content. Efforts to diminish the liability protection afforded to tech platforms and websites are false stripes or misguided at best, and would unequivocally hurt the cause of free speech. After all, there's nothing we can do unless we stand up for our own independence and protect ourselves from unexplained, random, or otherwise punitive abuses of their power.